Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning into my brand new YouTube channel. I'm so excited to be here today. I've been really wanting to start this channel for a long time and I'm really excited. So what I want to talk today is about how I was able to become an observant Jew.
Shalom, my friends. Welcome to another video with Yehuda Yisrael. In this video, we're going to do a comparison between this girl who became an Orthodox Jew, born Jewish. She's going to give her testimony of sorts, right? And we're going to kind of, in light of the comparison of what we did with this girl here, Trystentice, I did a video called Vulnerable Jewish Girl Falls Prey to Christian Deception. And I want to sort of discuss the psychological differences between one who turns into a Jew. I just thought it was interesting that you had these two Jewish girls who are around the same age relatively. They look, about the same age. And I just wanted to do a little comparison to see kind of like, how did each of these girls who come from kind of similar backgrounds, raised Jewish, nominally Jewish, not so religious, how did they end up, this girl end up Christian and this girl end up more religious as a Jew? So without further ado, let's give this video a watch.
An Orthodox Jew, a Torah Jew, how that happened for me in my life. Kind of my Jewish journey. So it actually began when I was, how old was I? It began during COVID. I was always really spiritual. I was always thinking about God, thinking about spirituality, thinking about religion, and thinking about like what impact does my action have in the physical world, in the spiritual world. Like I always was very well aware that there was like more than what meets the eye and like more than our five senses can perceive. And so I was always reading about that, always interested in like law of attraction. I worked at a crystal shop for like...
Onto the sushi. I love Wegman sushi.
So sorry about that ad. Anyway, so you can see that's a good point to stop just to give a little discussion about that. So she was open-minded to different sort of religious backgrounds. She clearly wasn't raised super religious, very similarly to Trysten here. When she was describing herself growing up Jewish, she said that she did all the things. Well, she really didn't. Like, what did she say here? She said, didn't mention, for example, let's see,
what religion are you? Oh, I'm Jewish because I'm told I'm Jewish.
So, right, so like you can see her kind of like, she was also raised in kind of like a less religious sort of setting. What did she say?
Like, so we did Hanukkah and Passover and all the high holidays, but being Jewish wasn't really something that I had a faith in. It was just like a culture.
Right, so she's describing that. And honestly, this girl here, Ayala, she also has like a similar background. So how did these two similar background girls end up in such different places? So let's keep watching.
Like always reading about the universe and like law of attraction. When I was much younger, actually, my family belonged to, my mom brought us to this church called the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, which is like a religion that kind of validates all religions and says like every book has truth to it, every holiday has truth to it. So they'll celebrate like Kwanzaa and then they'll celebrate like Hanukkah. And Christmas. But that for me was very confusing because I was very much a truth seeker.
Right, so it sounds like her mom raised her with this like multi-denomination, choose whatever you want sort of thing. And you can see that she, Ayala wants to be able to find something that is more definitively true as opposed to all these different things. It looks like Trysten was raised more, also like in a sense, like she was raised Jewish, but she also was, if you listen to the rest of her testimony, right, you can watch this video that I did on it. She talks about being in middle school and she didn't go to a Jewish private school or anything like that. Look, I didn't grow up going to a Jewish private school either, but I'm saying that I guess I did in pre-kindergarten, but besides that, like in like elementary school, high school, whatever, I went to public school. And so that experience a lot of times gives you, it can go either way, right? That's why I titled that video, Vulnerable Jewish Girl Falls Prey to Christian Deception. Honestly, when I think about it, Ayala was also somewhat vulnerable in this sense. So I want to be fair here. It's just interesting to see, when you don't have a strong Jewish background, anyway, well, let's just keep watching and see what she has to say.
I really wanted to get to the bottom of like, what is the truth? Like, one truth inherently means that that there can only be one, right? If everything is true, nothing is true. It's mutually exclusive. So I was very much a truth seeker and exposed to all different types of religions from a very young age. I had friends who were part of the Seventh-day Adventist church, and they would take me to that church very often. And I was always just well aware that there was a higher power, because I could emotionally feel that. Like, I could inherently intuit that there was something greater than myself, and I would always...
Yeah, it's fascinating because Trysten also describes going to church with her friends in middle school, right?
He's so real. And I wasn't like a diehard atheist trying to like prove God wasn't real, but I was just kind of like, okay, I cracked that code. God's not real. Moving on with my life, and didn't really...
That's interesting. So before she learned about, if you watch this video here, she describes how early in her life, before she even became a Christian or believed in Judaism or cultural experience, right? Because she never really gave that a chance, but like that she decided on atheism. This girl here has this spiritual yearning, I guess, where she didn't feel like, she didn't close her mind off to it. So I don't know. Maybe that's just temperament. I don't know if that's based on exposure or what that is, but interesting distinction between the two. That Trysten was more defiant from the get-go, and this girl was more open-minded to God. Just what is the faith system that makes the most sense, right? She wasn't completely shut off to Christianity, right? She said that she went to Seventh-day Adventist, church settings. So it wasn't like Christianity was made completely taboo for her. So interesting. So let's keep watching.
Always pray, and when prayers would come true in my life, I thought it was magical. I thought there's magic, prayers come true. What is this? You can ask for what you want, you can get it. The universe responds to us. There must be a God. So that was never a problem for me to believe that there was a God. My mom always taught me also, like, God is real, pray and God will answer you. But she said, like, you can pick your own religion type of thing.
Fascinating. Okay, fine. So Trysten, as opposed to Ayala, was in a situation where she was raised in this cultural Jewish hypocritical sort of, do the stuff, but you don't necessarily have to believe it. Whereas it looks like Ayala was given more of a, yes, there's a spiritual aspect to the universe, but you don't necessarily have to believe in, you get to pick your God. Which obviously is interesting. So let's contrast that with so Trysten also has a relationship with prayer. Let's see what she said about this, just to review.
Jesus, like, how do I know which God is like the right one? Because there's so many religions. And I was like, okay, God, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pray prayers specifically in Jesus' name. I pray, amen. And if Jesus is the truth, then answer me. And if not, then don't answer me.
So she's already saying, like, in Jesus' name, right? Because if you watch this video, you can give this, I'm not going to replay it for you, but you can watch this video on my channel. And you can see she was basically convinced by a pastor to pray specifically to Jesus. And so she's using this as like an experiment, just specifically with Jesus. And she never prayed, using any other sort of modality of religion. It was only through Jesus that she really ever made this attempt. Whereas Ayala was just describing that she was using prayer and she was getting magical results, but she wasn't really specifying, which God, I guess, she was going off of. Interesting. So, and this next part I wanted to highlight as well.
So prayed and went to sleep. Next day, I get a call from my dad's friend, and he said he's looking for someone to work at his pizza shop on Friday and Saturday nights. So every time my friends and I were gonna go and party and club and drink and whatever we were gonna go do, I ended up not being able to go because I had work. And so I just really saw the Lord's hand in that he so gently and so tenderly like removed me from situations so that I was fully walking with God and building this relationship with him.
So I didn't mention this when I made this video before, but what's the biggest irony about all of that is if Trysten was already, this girl here, Trysten, if she was already keeping Shabbat, she would already have an excuse not to go partying with her friends on Friday night, because she would be keeping Shabbat with her family or keeping Shabbat with her friends, and she wouldn't be going out and clubbing and drinking and whatever, right? She would be spiritually uplifting herself. And that's what being an Orthodox Jew enables you to do, is that you have that structure in your life. And that's what Ayala is going to explain in this video. So just to contrast those, I don't know. I hope you guys find this interesting. Rate, subscribe, or, give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share the news with other people. And by the way, so you can see Ayala's channel, she does some music stuff, so check her out as well. She looks like she has some interesting stuff. She's Kol Isha, if you know what that means, so whatever. But yeah, definitely she got some solid stuff, spreading the word of Torah. So yeah, definitely give her a check out as well. So let's keep watching what she has to say, though.
So I was at this point in my life, like very young, not practicing Judaism. My family was not religious. And then as I got older, I, around age 12, started being invited to my classmates' bat mitzvahs and bar mitzvahs. And I realized, like, wait, not only was the party so much fun, but the service before the party was very meaningful for me. I really enjoyed, like, the services before the party. And I thought, wait, this is my own religion. Why don't I look into this more? I knew we were Jewish, so I thought, why don't I explore this more?
And that's a great time in development of the life. I also, during the time of my bar mitzvah, I connected a lot more spiritually, especially with my own. I know a lot of my friends, came from Reform and conservative backgrounds. I also came from that sort of a background, but the synagogue that we attended was more religious, traditional. The rabbi was Orthodox, but most of the congregants weren't. And so I got sort of like the best of both worlds experiencing that. And I also it wasn't like I was, exposed to like Seventh-day Adventist sort of things. I mean, I did go to church with friends when I was a kid, but not because I believed in Jesus, but just because it was like, oh, my friend wants to take me to church with him. I'm not saying you have to be that open-minded, as obviously I'm religious now and I wouldn't do that, but I'm saying that within that context, it wasn't like there was like this shunning away of like, oh, you can't do anything with, anything to do with non-Jews, or you can't do anything to do with Christians, And I think in a sense that gave me a better foundation for making decisions to become more religious, because in a sense, my family, even though they weren't the most religious, out there, they at least gave me the opportunity to make the choice for myself.
So I ended up going to asking my mom, begging her to put me in Hebrew school. And I went to a Reform after school Hebrew school. And Reform is like a certain sect of Judaism, or like flavor of Judaism. And they pretty much believe that the Torah, which is the book, for those of you who don't know, which is the guiding book of Judaism, the Torah has like very valuable ideas, but is not to be taken literally, to apply in a literal sense to our lives today.
That's important, right? Because this is the majority of Jews in America that you're going to encounter, right? I grew up, in an environment where most of the Jews, especially if you go to public school, right, in a place where there's less, and I didn't grow up in a particularly Jewish area, but, the Jews who went to my school, they typically were Reform or conservative. None of them were Orthodox. And, it's not an extremely good foundation for Judaism. There's some that become very devout in Reform Judaism, and they usually become clergy. And if you're not clergy, if you're not a rabbi or a cantor or something, then you're probably not, considering Judaism very seriously. And that's, the twice a year type of Jew. That's typically the Reform, they go to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, they might have a Passover Seder, but they're not going to have, day to day. They don't pray every day, very few of them. But that's the majority of Jews in America that you will see, just in general. So if you're unfamiliar with that, or maybe you are a less religious Jew, and you can let me know in the comments if you feel like I'm misrepresenting that, but the majority of Reform Jews, like, for example, my mother would identify as a Reform Jew, and basically what she means is she's secular, is that she really doesn't, look, to my mother's credit, she put me in Hebrew school, but she didn't have a particular knowledge about Judaism, and she, my father had significantly more knowledge about it, and I learned a lot more from, I guess that's usually how it goes, but that was just kind of my experience. But yes, Reform Jews typically are more synonymous with secular Jews. So
it's sort of like a movement of Judaism, and basically I didn't know any of that. I didn't know there was multiple shades and colors of Judaism and like ways to practice Judaism. I thought that there was going to Hebrew school, great, you're doing it. So I went to Hebrew school, and I was studying to have my bat mitzvah. And my mom thought, like, she just wants a party. All her classmates are having a party. And I did. But I also felt a certain connection to it. And it really made me happy on a very deep level. It made me really fulfilled to go to Hebrew school and to learn about God, about Judaism. And so I had a bat mitzvah. And I continued with after school Jewish day school education. After public school, I didn't go to a Jewish school. I went to public school. I went to a high school after school thing for Jewish education. It was just so fun, so fulfilling for me. Really enlivened my life. After that.
So yeah, there's after school activities like I did junior NCSY, which was a more Orthodox oriented group, but a lot of the people aren't necessarily, it's run by Orthodox people, and it has an Orthodox, vibe to it. So yeah, it was a good thing to be involved in. But then in high school, most of my friends, because I went to public school, they were mainly into BBYO, B'nai B'rith Youth Organization. So I was primarily in that, but that was a non-denominational, less related. It's not like they were anti-Orthodox Judaism, but virtually nobody was Orthodox who attended it, because it was more catered to the greater non-denominational aspects of Judaism. It was like a fraternity, a sorority and a fraternity for high schooler Jews. That's basically what it was, without the alcohol and,
I went on Birthright when I went to college, and Birthright was an incredibly moving experience. For me, Birthright was a hallmark, because when you go to the land of Israel, there's something so holy about it that you can really connect to, even if no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, your background, just connecting and being in the land, there's such an inherent sense of spirituality that lingers like perfume long after you've left Israel. So
Sorry, another ad. But yes, I agree. Birthright was actually I went with my college campus Hillel Taglit, and I went with a group of people who were less religious. They just wanted to drink and party and whatever. And it wasn't the most spiritual experience for me, but the idea of just going to Israel, if I could have done it again, I would have went with a more religious organization. But yeah, I think I went my sophomore year of college. I think it was 2008, 2009-ish. And I enjoyed it, but yeah, I think definitely if I could have done it over again, I would have went with a more religious group. But yes, Israel, of course, the connection to the land of Eretz Yisrael, which we have always, that's why I always talk about Zionism being synonymous with Judaism, our yearning to go back to Jerusalem, rebuild the temple, all of that's inherent to our religion. So, in light of the political atmosphere today, if you're going to say, make this distinction between Judaism and Zionism, I'm not anti-Jewish, I'm just anti-Zionist, do that in Europe. I would say, well, I'm not just to even the playing field, I could say, what if I said to a Muslim person, I'm not anti-Muslim, I'm just anti-Mecca. Why can't you just go back to wherever why did you have to kick the Jews out of Saudi Arabia? Like, free Saudi Arabia from apartheid dhimmi Sharia law against Jews and Christians, right? I mean, seriously. But that's the sort of double standards that the world has. I know that's not the point of this video that we're doing now, but just to kind of show this is the yearning that the Jews have for the land of Israel, and it helped so many people to connect to God through our connection, not just to praying, but also to the actual land of Israel. And that is what Zionism is all about.
Went on Birthright. I had an incredible moving experience. I came back, went to college, and I was not religious at this point, not observant. I would sometimes pop in for a Friday night Shabbat dinner. Shabbat, for those who don't know, is the day of rest in Judaism, from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. And so I would pop in there occasionally to just for socially, just to feel connected to my Judaism, or just to say hi to some friends who I knew who were religious, but it wasn't something where I kept any of the laws of Shabbat or anything like that.
So this is a great stepping stone, right? And this is something that unfortunately Trysten missed out on, because she was saying that she basically didn't have the opportunity to connect spiritually to Friday night Shabbat. She just did it for cultural reasons, right? She said for cultural reasons, that's why she did it. And it's just really unfortunate, because there was an opportunity for her to connect. Usually this is the first, portal of connection that Jews have when they are less religious, is through Shabbat. And unfortunately, because Trysten was only culturally connected, she missed out on that. Whereas Ayala had this opportunity, and you'll see what she did with it.
So I was really, really just partying, bartender, sororities, just really not. Judaism was the last thing on my mind in college, really. I was studying, I was getting good grades, but I was also just partying and working as a bartender and trying to just have fun.
So you see the parallel, right? They were both party girls. They both were trying to look for meaning and spirituality. Well, I guess Trysten initially wasn't. She shut her mind off to it. Then she went through, whatever experience she did with her friends, and then they, brought her to church and whatever. The point being that they were both in very similar spots. So what was the difference, right? So Trysten, as we just, heard her speak about, her dad getting her a job on Shabbat, she never had the opportunity to experience what Shabbat would be like. Whereas Ayala had this opportunity to experience Shabbat and contrast that with her party life and make the decision for herself what she wanted to do.
And leading a really hedonistic lifestyle. And yeah, it wasn't fulfilling, obviously. It left me feeling empty. But really, it's exciting, it's fun when you're in it and you think, oh, everyone's doing it, right? It's college, so everyone around you is doing it, and it just feels right, and it feels exciting and spontaneous and fun. And but I knew it wasn't sustainable. I knew like this type of lifestyle is not sustainable after college, or at least long into your like late 20s and early 30s. So I graduated college. I went to I moved to New York. No, I went to teach English abroad in Austria for a year, and I was obviously not connected with my Judaism at this point either. I was enjoying living abroad and teaching in Austria, and it was fun, and that's it. I wasn't really thinking about Judaism at this point. I had then went to it was COVID, so I moved back to America, and I started living in Manhattan, and I wanted to like obviously meet people and be connected to people who were living in Manhattan where I was living, because it's COVID. I'm like 22 or something at this point. There's no social scene happening. Obviously during COVID, everything is closed. How am I going to make friends? How am I going to meet people? So my uncle is Israeli, and throughout my life, my uncle had always had Shabbat dinners. He was not religious, but he was so spiritual, such a generous, kind person, and his like devotion to always having Shabbat dinners every single week, never missing a Friday night dinner, was really like left an imprint on me.
So you see that, and this is something that unfortunately Trysten didn't have, right? It doesn't sound like outside of, she has her immediate family, but she didn't have this example. Her uncle, she said, wasn't even the most religious, but he consistently did Shabbat every week. Clearly Trysten did not, because like we just heard in the video, she said that the only way that she got herself to stop partying on the weekends is that she had to work on Friday nights. Friday, right? Literally when Shabbat starts, going against what the Torah says. That's the irony that I see with that. Whereas Ayala was able to make this decision. She was able to see an example of not even a Jew who was fully observant, but just enough to make her, think about things so that she can find the right path that worked for her, which happened to be Orthodox Judaism. Baruch Hashem.
So I always remember that, and he told me you should check out Shabbat Dinners because there's nothing else going on right now in the city. If you want to meet people, why don't you check out this One Table Shabbat Dinner? One Table is a really cool organization for people who don't have or who want to go to a new Shabbat dinner experience and they're maybe not religious. You can sign up on onetable.com to attend a meal for free at someone else's house. So I did that, and there was someone who was in the Upper West Side who has huge meals free for hundreds of people every week in the Upper West Side. Really an incredible person who puts on these meals, and I don't know how he does it. And I went to that. I ended up meeting a lot of people in the Upper West Side, and I just started attending more and more Jewish activities and socializing more in the Upper West Side. I was so curious about Judaism. I loved attending classes. I remember I walked into a place called to a Kiruv synagogue. Kiruv means outreach. So I walked into a synagogue that was on a Jewish holiday where you stay up all night studying Torah. And
so yeah, that holiday is Shavuot, right? Or basically the first fruits, as I think maybe Christians might know it as Bikkur, basically the festival of the giving of the Torah, or the festival of the first, so right now we're in the middle of counting of the Omer. At the end of the Omer, after the 49 days of counting, then you have, or I guess they call it Pentacost, maybe. Is that what Christians call it? I don't know. But and that's the culmination of counting from the second night of Passover to 50 days after that, or 49 nights. So yeah, that's what she is referring to. And yeah, Kiruv, that's basically the idea of Jews outreaching to other Jews to become more religious. That's what Kiruv is.
I walked in, I had dinner, and they invited me to have dinner for free. I didn't pay. They invited me to stay, and I saw that they were studying Torah all night, through the night. They were like drinking coffee at like 10 o'clock, being like, yeah, we're studying Torah all night. And I thought,
I'm here to share with you the new gift boxes from Save the Children. This one is about growth.
All right.
that's so cool. That's so interesting. And I wanted to stay. That was really exciting for me. So I didn't know that, right? I thought Judaism, staying up all night studying Torah, like, wait, what? I thought, what's going on? I didn't know there was that much to being a Jew. So I stayed for that, and I remember it changed my life. There was classes, all night Torah classes. There was books that we were reading about self-improvement, self-development, how to live a more meaningful and fulfilling life. And the Jewish thought that I was absorbing from those classes, from being at this really special organization, just absolutely changed my life. And I think a lot of people have that experiences because there's such amazing Jewish outreach organizations, especially where I live in Manhattan. It can really change your entire life to help you lead a more fulfilling life. And so I started attending classes at that organization more regularly. I signed up for their program to every week, 3 hours a day, 3 hours once a week, to study. And then it culminated in a trip to Israel, this program. So I actually went so I was really interested, obviously. I was studying there every week, 3 hours, meeting new people, trying to keep Shabbat more and more, growing a lot, learning so much. And I remember someone told me I should go study in Israel. And I was like, I'm not going to take off from work to drop everything, to go uproot my life and to go study in Israel. But yeah, I was like, no.
So this is actually a very stereotypical way of these things working, right? They do like to pressure you to go study in Israel after you start, as they say, holding in the Parsha. You start getting more into the religious stuff. Once they see you have the interest, they usually make something happen for you to either study in New York or Israel or something like that. I actually never took advantage of that. Some people think I'm silly for that, but it is what it is, whatever. And, the point of this channel is to show that you don't necessarily have to go studying in Israel to know the truth of Torah. If you want to, wonderful, kol hakavod. But it doesn't take studying in Israel to know that, the Torah is true, and that's why this channel exists, for you to go study and learn. And we go through the Parsha every week here. We discuss, Christianity, Islam, and why Judaism is true. The truth of the Torah makes more sense relative to any of those. So
I eventually went on another retreat. It's called Sinai Retreats. And it took like a lot of convincing for me to go to these things. Like, I was not like, let's go. I was like, I don't know. But people saw how interested and passionate I was about Judaism, and they knew that I could only grow I could grow best in certain environments. And thank God.
So, okay, I take that back. I did take advantage of one trip. I went to Lakewood, New Jersey for a week. And I learned at BMG, Beit Midrash Gavoa. It's the biggest yeshiva in the country. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and it definitely helped me on my journey. So yeah, it wasn't that I didn't take advantage of any of them, but I didn't, take them up on paying for me to go to Israel for a year. But yeah, I also was more career driven, and it's your own decisions, right? It's your own life. You make these choices. The opportunities are there if you want to take advantage of them. If not, then you can very well balance your life appropriately, do the things you need to do, and still live a Torah life.
God for those people pushing me to grow, because I promise I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for them. And at first you can feel so reluctant to these things. Like, I was not trying to uproot my life and go even on this weekend retreat. I remember I went upstate for this retreat in Lake George, and it was to learn more about Judaism and be with like-minded people who also wanted to learn and grow in their Judaism. I remember my mom had to pick me up early because I was working as a real estate agent, and I had to unlock an apartment that I had rented out to someone to someone, and I had like the key with me on the retreat upstate. So she had to drive like 5 hours. Thank God, she's like the best, to bring me back early from the retreat that I could unlock the door and this person could move into their apartment. So yeah, anyway, sidetracked. So I started going to just more of these things. My rabbis, my mentors and teachers were saying, oh, you should learn and grow in Israel. They kept saying that. I also kept meeting girls who had gone to Israel to study Torah and saw the impact that it had on them, and they told me, just raved about it to me. So it gets in your head, and eventually, okay, I also was dating somebody at the time who was more religious than me, who was an observant Jew, and I was not yet an observant Jew. And they really left a huge impact on me as well. They really got me thinking about like how to live life in a more like detail-oriented and meaningful way. And I was so inspired by their self-discipline and by their commitment to Torah and to God. It was such an attractive quality to me to see a man not live for his own instincts, his own desires, but for something higher.
So yeah, and this is, I think, an aspect of Judaism that a lot of people overlook, and I like that she highlighted this. And it can be difficult, when people are going through the dating stages and they don't really know. I mean, I would suggest for anybody who is on a spiritual journey and they're looking for, like romantic, obviously, like if you talk to Orthodox Jews in the system, right, the shidduch way of thinking of things, then you wouldn't, I guess, get involved until you're ready for marriage and you're that sort of thing. But for those of us who take the more non-traditional path, my lived advice would be to look for somebody who is genuinely on your same wavelength, knowing what your values are, what your hashkafa, what your outlook is, and what your limits are in terms of, somebody, if they're a little bit more religious than you, a little bit less religious than you, there might be a little bit of a buffer zone, to kind of find that match. But if you have like a huge disparity, chances are it's not going to work, because how do you respect each other if one person is, driving on Shabbat and the other person is sitting at home, or going to shul and going out of their way to, not do those types of things on Shabbat? Or it's very difficult to respect each other in a marriage or a relationship, and it's just not going to work. But anyway, I appreciate her mentioning now, when it comes to detail-oriented things, I don't know. For me, I was a little bit turned off at the beginning when I saw some of the more excessive detail-oriented things that maybe if you're not exposed to it all your life, you might be like, geez, you have to do that on Shabbat? I can't do this on Shabbat? I can't... there's a lot of stuff that can kind of become overwhelming. I don't know. A lot of people are more attracted to it. For me, I needed it in smaller doses to get to a point when I realized that it was genuinely meaningful. I needed to sort of intellectualize it first, understand where the sources came from. And that's why this channel exists, to show you the sources, to show you why, the rabbinic authority isn't some sort of laws of men that contradict the Torah, as opposed to, the Christian way of looking at it, where they literally worship a man who they claim supersedes the Torah, and you don't have to do it anymore, right? Which is the lesser of, even if you don't believe in either of those, which is the lesser of the two quote-unquote evils? I'll take rabbinic Judaism any day over worshiping a man who basically says don't keep the Torah anymore because he fulfilled it for you. Straight shtus, follow the people who actually have the track record of keeping the Torah and following God's word. Anyway.
I thought, wow, like that's the type of person I would want to marry one day. And so I was just very inspired by that, and that kept fueling my growth. Eventually, I end up in the summer, that same summer, going to Israel and studying at an amazing school. And this school is like 9 to 5 classes about Torah, about Judaism from...
Dad, I think I want to throw a curveball.
You want to throw a curveball? You have to understand the...
All right.
Incredible teachers, like brilliant minds, renowned in their fields, world-renowned speakers, lecturers, rabbis, female teachers, everything. And they were so relatable. This school is like, they're bringing you relatable teachers who inspire you so much. It lit my soul on fire. It really did. Like hearing just this truth, I was overcome with the feeling that like, wow, Torah is true, Judaism is true. And I know it sounds like that's brainwashing, but in reality, we're all being brainwashed all the time by everyone around us, by so many different things all at once. So I feel like it's intentional brainwashing. It's choosing what to be brainwashed by, and that's Torah. Like, so
I don't know if I would say it exactly like that, but you get her point, is that like you have different influences across, you know, the media, the world, whatever. You choose what you want to invest in and learn more about, and you do an assessment based on what seems the most true to you. You use that standard, apply it, and you land on Torah. Great. Baruch Hashem. That's one way to look at it.
I learned so many things about I always loved self-development. I always loved self-improvement, and like having a guidebook that like the Torah, where teachers were able to explain like ancient wisdom on this stuff, because it's like, we're not the first people here, you know, we're not, the world has been going on for a very long time, and I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. I'm trying to learn from people smarter than me, people who have ancient, timeless wisdom. So I felt that the school did an amazing job at that. It's really like incredible place. And it's the most beautiful place. It looks literally like Gan Eden, the Garden of Eden. And there's like roses everywhere, and like sunset, like flowers on a mountain in Jerusalem in Israel. Really incredible place. So after that, I got a job at a Jewish company, and it was amazing for my growth also, because I was constantly around people who were practicing observant Judaism, and who were helping other people be inspired by Judaism, and this was the perfect company for me.
And that can be really interesting too, is when you get into a place, or it doesn't necessarily have to be a job, but like when you get into a community where there's more Jewish influence and you can live a life with other people. Like it can be very alienating when you grow up in a place where there's not so many Jews, and not many Jews who even know about Judaism. So if you ever have the opportunity, you know, going to either like a Chabad or like an Aish or a Kollel, or, you know, some sort of experience where there's a critical mass of Jews, you know, New York City, wherever, LA, Miami, Chicago, like these types of places, Cleveland, Detroit. If you have opportunities to visit religious communities, you'll probably be, especially in like the Midwestern places, you'll be able to get set up for Shabbat. You'll be able, you know, you got some nice Hamish, homey places that they love this. They love Jews to become more interested in Judaism who didn't have the opportunity of having that. And that's the beautiful thing, is that Ayala was around the right people for that. And unfortunately, Trysten wasn't. She wasn't given those opportunities, and that's why she ended up a Christian, which really is a shanda. But, yeah.
I was so grateful to God for placing me at that company, because, you know, that didn't have to happen. That was really spontaneous how it happened. It's called hashgacha practice in Judaism, in Hebrew, where it's like God intervenes in your life and places you exactly where you need to be, totally spontaneously, without you even doing anything. And other people attribute that to a coincidence, but to me it was so clearly the hand of God, so to speak.
So that, yeah, divine providence, that's what hashgacha pratis is. And so here we described I talked about the spiritual placebo effect in the video with Trysten, where she was basically saying that her prayers to Jesus somehow was, giving her, this divine providence that, oh wow, I got a job on Shabbat, and that means that I don't have to go get drunk with my friends now because of the peer pressure. And she interpreted that because she prayed a prayer to Jesus, right? That gave her that. I'll play the clip real quick just to kind of like recap the concept of the spiritual placebo effect.
So I'm getting a little carried away. But yeah, I was a huge party girl and just living however I wanted, fully in the world. And so I prayed that God would change the desires of my heart because it was a super unfulfilling lifestyle and I was just kind of getting drained all the time. So I prayed that and I prayed for a car. So that was it. I was just like, okay, God, like I know you're real. Like I know what I felt, but how do I know that it's Jesus? Like, is it God? Is it Buddha? Is it God of the Jewish faith? Or is it Jesus?
Is it God of the Jewish faith? See, she doesn't know what the God of the, what the God of the Torah is, right? Obviously she didn't really study Buddha or anything like that. She already has it primed in her mind that she's looking for Jesus to be the answer to whatever it is, right? She already has that hypnotic suggestion from her pastor, from the woman that was influencing her in her life, her friends. They're all saying that any sort of, spiritual experience that you might experience is from Jesus. So she's naturally going to be inclined to explain it in that way rather than explaining it in another way, right? That's why I call Jesus a spiritual placebo. It's the spiritual placebo effect. That is what Jesus is. So, right. So, fortunately for Ayala, she didn't have that experience of Jesus being, the only sense of spiritual source that she ever encountered, right? She had other options to sort of connect with, and she also had an open mind to the concept of God before, Jesus was shoved down her throat. She already had this opportunity to, cultivate her own understanding of things without the subconscious placebo effect. So now when Ayala experiences these, divine providence things in her life, she can genuinely attribute it in a way that is more tried and true, as opposed to Trysten here, who is just saying, well, because I prayed in Jesus's name, that means that Jesus did all of these things for me, which is, once again, a placebo effect, a spiritual placebo. That's what Jesus is.
So that was an amazing experience for me. I've been working there for about a year now. And then this past summer, I most recently went to another school in Israel. Not the same school I went to the first time, but a different school. And they taught me more of like the intricate, detailed laws of how to actually keep Torah and mitzvos. And that was really powerful and empowering for me, because for a long time I was so fueled by inspiration and fueled by what I had learned at the first school, which was a lot about self-development and connection to God and spirituality. And that's what I love. That's what I thrive on. But I was missing a component of structure, law, halacha, which is Jewish law, structure, and just the details of everyday living as an observant Jew, what has to happen in your day. There's something so beautiful about, and I know a lot of people think it's overwhelming and weird, I definitely did it first, about the little intricacies that Judaism makes us think about. It's almost like, wait, why does God care how I put my shoes on in the morning? Or why does God care if I wash my hands when I wake up and say a blessing? Like, doesn't God have more bigger, important things to worry about? But at the end of the day, I think it's beautiful that Judaism believes God does care about those little things. God's involved even in our lives, even to the most minute detail of our existence. That's a really beautiful, powerful, empowering thought to have, right? As opposed to, he has more things to worry about than little old me. So,
And once again, this is something that I, even to this day, to some degree, push back against. But I'm learning to appreciate the little things. I do, my best to follow. But I like to also find, like, what is the core message? I'm very whole picture thinking. So when I do the little details, I'm always thinking about it with the bigger picture in mind. Oh, I'm praying 3 times a day because this is what Daniel did. And this is how we're able to, little by little through our prayers together, bring back, the Levitical priesthood back to its former glory, like it says in Malachi chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. And we literally quote the third and the fourth pasuk at the end of the praying when we say, then the offerings of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to you like in the days of old and in former years, right? That's what we're praying for. And I love how the end of the Shemona Esrei ends with that you do silently to yourself. So when you do these things, they have, when you do a Passover Seder, you're the culmination of like going up to the Hallel, and then, when you have Eliyahu Hanavi, right, who also at the end of Malachi, right, we're saying we welcome Elijah to come into our homes, in a symbolic sense, but literally we want Elijah to come so that the coming of the Messiah will be imminent and we will be able to live in the era of world peace. All these things that we do really have that with the future in mind and refining ourselves in our day-to-day as well as meeting together as a community, whether it be at the Seder, whether it be on keeping Shabbat together. It's all part of the process of redemption.
Yeah, I went to that school this past summer, and now I'm starting this YouTube channel. I'm so excited to see where this takes me, and I hope that this channel can be a place that just gets us all thinking and keeps us inspired and fueled to question things, to just ask the right questions and get answers. This is not to say that anybody should change their beliefs at all, but I know that there's a lot of curiosity around this stuff. I get asked these questions in real life all the time, and I thought it would be really meaningful to make a channel about it. So thank you so much for watching. I know this has been a long first video. I appreciate all of you so much, and for more of this content, please subscribe and like this video. That way I can know that you enjoyed it and make similar content. Have a great day and talk to you soon.
So yeah, I thought this was, I think, kol hakavod to you, Ayala. I think this is a wonderful thing. This is why I made my channel, so that, other people could learn from my experiences. And, we talk about testimonies, right? Christians love their testimonies. And remember, this girl, trystentice, right? She has her own channel. And you see, when she made her video, as I emphasized before, Christians just jumped on this, right? She had 82,000 views there, right? And they really, really love to see it when Jews convert to Christianity. But what I love is when Jews become more observant and following of the Torah in accordance with God's will. That is a beautiful thing to me. So thank you so much, Ayala, for doing this. Subscribe to her channel, check her out, listen to her music, Kol Isha. Put that in parentheses if you catch my drift. So just recognizing that these two girls come from similar backgrounds, yet they ended up in completely different places. So I just wanted to make this to show that we are able to make an impact through the way that we interact with people who at one point might appear to be lost souls. And sometimes they end up, unfortunately, being even more lost in the sense of Trysten. But that's why we have this channel to help. And also following Ayala's journey. So, Kol HaKavod. I made this video still when Passover was, but I'm probably not going to post it until after Passover. But regardless, at the risk of dating myself in this video, whenever I post this, have a wonderful day, week, and just Shalom Aleichem, and I hope this video has been a blessing to you all. Please like, share, subscribe, and spread the word. Shalom Aleichem.